Welcome to Whispers and Fire audiobooks, where cold whispers meet burning hearts. In the quiet of winter, every whisper carries a story, and every story carries a spark. This is Whispers and Fire audiobooks. Time has a way of revealing what truly matters. And in the next chapter of Jake and Tracy's story, we see just how far love, purpose, and courage can carry two people who refuse to give up on each other. The Rustling Foundation is no longer just an idea born from pain. It's a force, a lifeline, a movement changing lives across Maine and soon, far beyond it. Jake steps deeper into his role as a leader, a mentor, a man rebuilding the world one veteran at a time. Tracy becomes the strategic heart of a mission that's growing faster than either of them ever imagined. Together, they face new challenges, new victories, and the kind of choices that shape not just a year, but a lifetime. And as the years begin to unfold, something extraordinary happens. Their love becomes legacy. Their healing becomes hope for thousands. And the moment Tracy found Jake on that frozen roadside becomes the spark that ignites a future neither of them could have dreamed. Episode 6 is where the story comes full circle, where past, present, and future collide, and where the true impact of Jake and Tracy's journey finally begins to shine. The story, including all characters, plot lines, and settings, is completely fabricated and not based on any specific real-life individuals, historical events, or actual locations, past, present, or future. No representation is made regarding the accuracy of any events depicted, and any opinions expressed are those of the fictional characters, not the creator. This story is for entertainment purposes only. Content warning and resources. Pinned by creator J. H. D. Langren. This novel discusses mature themes including trauma, PTSD, past suicidal ideation, domestic violence, and institutional corruption. If these topics are difficult for you, please prioritize your well-being. You are not alone. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help. Every country has local support lines. Check your region's emergency and mental health services for the most accurate numbers. Remember, help is available worldwide. If your country isn't listed, please search online for local hotlines or emergency services in your area. You deserve support and safety. Before we continue with episode 6, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves emotional, character-driven stories. And in the comments, let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing this community grow around Jake and Tracy's journey. Full circle. The Rustling Foundation's second year brought new challenges and deeper impact. They secured grant funding that allowed them to hire 2 more counselors and expand into a second location in Augusta, the state capital. The Thursday support group had grown so large they'd split into 2 sessions. The job placement program had achieved an 87% success rate, with most veterans staying employed past the critical 6-month mark where many previous programs failed. But the most meaningful developments weren't in the statistics, they were in the stories. Derek, the young Marine who'd been unable to sleep without seeing his fallen squad, had completed his counseling program and was now working as a peer counselor himself. He'd found his purpose in helping others navigate the same trauma he'd survived, and Jake watched him with the pride of a mentor seeing his student succeed. A woman named Sarah, Army medic with severe PTSD from treating casualties under fire, had gone from homeless and actively suicidal to stable housing, regular therapy, and a job at a local hospital. She sent Tracy a card on their anniversary. "Thank you for creating a place where I could believe I deserve to live. I'm still here because of you both." A veteran named Marcus had come to the foundation unable to hold a job due to anger management issues and substance abuse. Through the foundation's integrated approach, support with counseling, accountability, job training, and the support of the Thursday group, he'd gotten sober, completed an electrician's apprenticeship, and was now running his own small contracting business. He'd hired 2 other veterans as his first employees. These were the victories that mattered. Not the press coverage or the awards or the recognition, even though those came too, including a state-level commendation for community service, but the individual lives changed, the veterans who'd been pulled back from the edge the way Jake had been pulled from that frozen ditch. "This is what we're doing," Jake told Tracy one evening as they reviewed the Foundation's year-end report. "We're creating a network. Every person we help becomes part of it, and they help the next person, and it ripples outward. We're not just serving veterans, we're building a community that takes care of its own. It's working, Tracy said, reviewing the numbers with satisfaction. Jake, look at this. Our recidivism rate is less than 15%. That means veterans who come to us are staying stable, not bouncing back into crisis. That's incredible. It's the community model, Jake explained. We're not just fixing problems, we're creating belonging. People don't fall back into crisis when they have people who care about them, who check in, who notice when they're struggling. That model caught the attention of national organizations. Jake was invited to speak at a Veteran Services Conference in Washington, D.C., sharing the Russell Lang Foundation's approach with program directors from across the country. He presented data, shared stories, outlined the replicable elements of their model. He told his own story again. It was the one he'd told dozens of times now, but which never got easier in some ways and got easier in others. The explosion, the losses, the discharge and homeless months, the night Tracy found him, the long, hard climb back to wholeness. I'm standing here today not because I'm special, he told the assembled conference attendees. I'm here because I got lucky. Someone stopped to help. Someone invested in me before I could invest in myself. Someone built a bridge from where I was to where I needed to be, and then had the patience to walk across it with me. He paused, looking out at the hundreds of faces. It was all the program directors, counselors, advocates, policymakers. Every veteran deserves that bridge. Every person who's served this country deserves the chance to rebuild when they fall. The Russell Lang Foundation is our small part of building that bridge. But we need more bridges, more communities stepping up, more people willing to invest in solutions. Because the veterans coming home now, they're our responsibility. Not just the government's responsibility, not just the VA's responsibility. Ours. All of us. The standing ovation that followed was gratifying, but more valuable were the conversations afterward. The various program directors wanting to replicate their model, funders interested in supporting expansion, other veterans sharing their own stories of struggle and survival. Jake exchanged contact information with a dozen different organizations, agreed to consult on 3 new veteran support programs being launched in other states, and came home exhausted but energized. We're going to do this, he told Tracy on the flight back to Portland. We're going to scale this model, get it implemented in communities across the country, change how veteran support works at a systemic level. Tracy raised an eyebrow. Jake, I'm already running a multi-million-dollar import business and serving on the foundation board. I can't take on managing national expansion too. Not you personally, but the foundation can. We hire staff to manage it, create a national office, develop training programs. You guide the business side, I provide the veteran perspective and model development. Together, we build something that outlasts us. Tracy considered it carefully. That's a big vision. It would require significant funding, careful planning, and years of work. I know. Jake took her hand. But isn't that what we're doing anyway? Building something that matters? Something that helps people who desperately need it? Why stop with Maine when the need is everywhere? You're right. Tracy smiled. That expression Jake knew meant her strategic mind was already working through logistics and possibilities. Let's do it. Let's build something national. But she held up a finger. We do it smart. We don't overextend. We build the foundation first, make sure our local operation is rock solid, then expand from position of strength. Agreed. Agreed. Jake kissed her hand. See? This is why I married you. You temper my idealism with actual planning. Someone has to. But she was smiling. I love that you dream big, Jake. I love that you see possibilities and want to chase them. I just want to make sure we're successful in the chase. Legacy solidified. The next 5 years transformed the Russell Lang Foundation from a local success story into a regional model and eventually into a national program. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, funding challenges, growing pains as they expanded. But Jake and Tracy had learned how to work together, how to leverage their different strengths, how to weather difficulties while maintaining their core mission and their marriage. A few years in, the foundation operated 15 sites across 6 states. They'd helped over 3,000 veterans find employment, provided counseling services to 5,000 more, and created a network of support groups that met in 37 cities. The model worked, and other organizations were starting to adopt elements of it: the peer counseling approach, the integrated services model, the emphasis on community building over transactional help. Jake, now 34, had become something he never imagined: a recognized expert in veteran transition services. He'd published articles in professional journals, given a TED Talk that had been viewed 2 million times, and been appointed to a federal advisory committee on veteran affairs. He still maintained his security consulting practice. It kept him grounded in practical, tangible work, but the foundation had become his primary focus. Tracy, at 41, had similarly evolved. Her import business had grown strategically, expanding into new markets, but maintaining its original ethical focus on artisan goods and fair trade practices. She'd become known in business circles as someone who successfully balanced profit with purpose, and she frequently spoke about corporate social responsibility and ethical business practices. She served on multiple boards, mentored young entrepreneurs, and somehow still found time to be actively involved in foundation strategic planning. They were successful by any measure. Their businesses thrived. Their foundation changed lives. They'd built a beautiful home together. It wasn't the original house, which they'd sold, but a new custom-built place on the same cove with better space for their needs and dreams. They traveled, they had friends, they contributed to their community in meaningful ways. But they also remembered where they'd started. Every year on the anniversary of the night Tracy found Jake, they drove out to that stretch of highway. It was marked with a small memorial stone they'd placed there and stood quietly, remembering. "I almost died here," Jake said on their 6th anniversary, standing on the shoulder where he'd been hit. The scar on his face had faded somewhat with time, but it was still visible, and he no longer tried to hide it. It was part of his story, part of what made him credible to the veterans he served. "You almost died," Tracy agreed, taking his hand. "But you didn't. Everything we've built, every life we've touched, every veteran we've helped, it all started here. In this moment when I made the choice to stop." "Best decision you ever made?" Tracy smiled. "Second best. The best was saying yes when you proposed. But this is a close second." They stood there for a while longer, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and built something extraordinary from broken pieces. Then they got back in the truck. Jake was driving Tracy's BMW, the same vehicle that had carried him from death toward life 6 years ago, and they drove home to the life they created. The years continued to pass, bringing the expected mixture of joy and challenge, growth and loss. Colonel Davenport passed away peacefully at 82, and Jake delivered a eulogy that left the entire funeral in tears, talking about the man who'd given him a chance when he desperately needed one. Jenna retired from active administration at 65 but remained on the board, still offering her wisdom and occasional gentle criticism when she thought they were overextending. Ray continued running the job training program into his mid-70s, finally stepping back only when his knees made it physically impossible to demonstrate the work anymore. But he stayed involved, showing up at Thursday meetings to mentor the younger veterans, offering the kind of gruff wisdom that came from experience and genuine care. Jake's parents became regular visitors, finally understanding the man their son had become. Robert worked with the foundation's building projects, using his construction skills to help renovate new sites. Margaret volunteered in the office, her warm presence comforting to veterans who needed that maternal energy. The reconciliation wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments, still old wounds that twinged, but it was real, and it was healing. Tracy's mother remained a constant presence, proud of her daughter and the life she'd built, frequently telling anyone who would listen about "my brilliant daughter and her remarkable husband." Derek, the Marine Jake had helped in those early days, eventually became the Foundation's Director of Counseling, leading the peer counseling program and training new counselors. His journey from broken veteran to program director became another story they told. It was the proof that healing wasn't just possible, but could lead to purpose. Sarah, the Army medic, went back to school and became a registered nurse, specializing in trauma care. She credited the Foundation with saving her life and regularly volunteered, bringing her medical expertise to help other veterans navigate healthcare systems. Marcus, the former angry, substance-abusing veteran, grew his electrical contracting business into a thriving company that prioritized hiring veterans. He became one of the foundation's major donors, giving back in gratitude for the help he'd received. The ripples continued outward, each life that was touched and touching others in turn, creating a network of healing and support that expanded beyond anything Jake and Tracy had originally envisioned. The foundation itself evolved, adding new programs as needs were identified. A Women Veterans Program, recognizing their unique challenges. A family support program, helping spouses and children understand and cope with PTSD and trauma. A legal aid clinic, assisting with VA benefits claims and other legal issues. The model kept growing, kept adapting, always returning to the core principle: veterans helping veterans, community building, and comprehensive support that address the whole person rather than just isolated problems. Jake and Tracy navigated it all together. The triumphs and setbacks, the public recognition and private struggles, the constant balancing act between work and life, ambition and sustainability. They had learned, after some rocky periods, to protect their relationship even as they pursued their shared mission. The monthly weekends away became sacred time. They traveled internationally, combining Tracy's business trips with personal adventures. They hiked, they read, they cooked elaborate meals together. They maintained friendships, went to movies, did normal couple things that had nothing to do with their work or their legacy. They loved each other, through the exciting times and the boring times, through health and sickness, through abundance and occasional financial stress, through everything that life brought. They'd promised forever on their wedding day, they meant it, and they lived it every single day. 30 years later, the historical marker, erected by the county 3 years ago, stood at the entrance to what was now a full campus. It was the Russell Lang Foundation that had grown far beyond that first modest office. The original building was still there, preserved as part of the larger complex, but now it was surrounded by additional structures: a modern counseling center, a vocational training facility, administrative offices, even modest housing for veterans transitioning from homelessness to stability. The marker itself was simple bronze, warmed by the afternoon sun of an October day. On this site stands the Russell Lang Foundation, established by Tracy Russell Lang and Jacob Lang. Born from a single act of compassion on a winter's night, their partnership forged a legacy of care for veterans and families, shaping the character of this community for generations. Their love story is a historic testament to the power of second chances and the enduring impact of healing. An elderly couple walked slowly along the path that wound through the campus, their hands clasped together with the easy familiarity of decades. Tracy's auburn hair was now streaked with elegant silver, pulled back in a simple style that suited her 63 years. Lines of laughter framed her eyes, and she moved with the careful deliberation of someone whose body had slowed, but whose spirit remained vibrant. Jake, at 55, had aged more gently than the hard years of his youth might have predicted. His hair was gunmetal gray, his face weathered but kind. The scars that had once defined him were now just part of the landscape of a well-lived life. He walked with a slight limp. It was an old injury finally catching up to him, but his back was still straight, his bearing still that of a man who'd served with honor. They stopped and looked at the plaque, not with pride exactly, but with a quiet, deep contentment. "They make it sound so grand," Tracy murmured, leaning her head against his shoulder in a gesture unchanged by 3 decades of marriage. "It was grand," Jake said, his voice still laced with that slight Western cadence, though roughened now with age and emotion. He squeezed her hand. "You found a frozen, broken man on the side of the road and saw something worth saving. You built this." He gestured at the bustling campus around them. The campus was alive with activity even at 4 in the afternoon. Veterans moved between buildings. Some were young, recently discharged, still carrying the visible signs of service and struggle. Others middle-aged, finding their way back after years of losing their way. A few elderly, vets who'd finally, after decades, found the courage to seek help. Staff members moved purposefully, everyone focused on the mission that had driven this place for 30 years. Through the windows of the main counseling center, they could see a group session in progress. It was the Thursday meeting that had started with Jake and Colonel Davenport and now continued under new leadership but with the same spirit of brotherhood and understanding. "We did," Tracy corrected gently, her hand coming up to rest on his chest, over his heart. "We built this together. Your vision, your heart, your understanding of what veterans needed. I just helped make it real." "It all started with a single, cold night," Jake said softly, his mind traveling back across the years to that moment when everything changed. "I was walking on that highway, completely certain I had nothing left to live for. That was where you stopped. It has kept me warm for a lifetime," Jake continued, turning to her. The setting sun cast golden light across her face, and he saw both the 63-year-old woman she was now and the 33-year-old woman who'd brought him home that frozen night. All the years between, all the moments lived and shared, were there in her eyes. He bent his head and kissed her, a slow, tender kiss that held 30 years of shared joy and grief and triumph and ordinary Thursday evenings. A kiss that tasted of youth and age, of passion and comfort, of promises kept and futures claimed. Around them, life continued. The veterans were healing, staff working, the foundation fulfilling its mission, but for this moment, there was only them. When they finally parted, Tracy kept her hand on his cheek, her thumb gently tracing the old scars that time had softened but never erased. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "Really think about it? About how different everything could have been?" "Every day," Jake admitted. "I think about the truck that hit me, how if it had struck 6 inches to the left, I wouldn't be here. I think about you driving home that night, how if you'd left work 5 minutes earlier or later, you wouldn't have been there. I think about all the tiny choices and coincidences that had to align perfectly for our lives to intersect at exactly that moment." He paused, his hand covering hers on his face. "But mostly I think about how grateful I am. For you. For this life. For every single day I've been given that I didn't think I'd have." "I'm grateful too," Tracy said. "You gave me back something I thought was gone forever. It was the feeling of home. Of partnership. Of not being alone." She smiled, a little watery. "You made me brave again, Jake. Brave enough to love after loss. Brave enough to build something new instead of just preserving what was." They stood there frozen in the moment, wrapped in each other and 30 years of shared memories, watching the campus they'd built from nothing but compassion and determination. "Look at them," Tracy said, nodding toward a young veteran being greeted by a peer counselor at the entrance to the main building. The veteran looked lost, scared, defensive. It was exactly the way Jake had looked 30 years ago. But the counselor, she, herself a veteran who'd come through the program 5 years ago, approached with gentle confidence, offering a hand and a smile that said, "You're safe here, you're understood here, and you belong here." "That's us," Jake said quietly. "Every single day, we're still pulling people out of ditches. Still saying, 'You're going to make it,' when they can't believe it themselves. Still building bridges from broken to whole. The legacy we talked about on our wedding day," Tracy remembered. "We said we wanted to build something that would outlast us. Something that would help people long after we were gone. We did it." Jake's voice was filled with wonder. "We actually did it." The story of the millionaire businesswoman and the wandering warrior was no longer just a tale of rescue. It had become a legend of legacy, a love that didn't just save 2 people but went on to save countless others. Their foundation had directly served over 15,000 veterans in its 30 years. But the indirect impact, all the families kept together, the suicides prevented, the homelessness avoided, the careers built, the lives reclaimed, that was immeasurable. Other cities and states had replicated their model. The Russell Foundation approach to veteran services was now taught in social work programs and policy schools. The Thursday support group model had been adopted by veteran organizations nationwide. The peer counseling certification program Jake had completed 3 decades ago had been refined and expanded, training thousands of veterans to help their brothers and sisters heal. The foundation had become more than an organization, it had become a movement. At the heart of it all was a simple truth: that compassion matters, that community heals, that every person deserves a second chance, and that love was real, patient, transformative love could change the world one life at a time. As the sun continued its descent toward the horizon, painting the campus in shades of gold and amber, Jake and Tracy made their way slowly toward the parking lot. They moved at the pace of people who had nowhere urgent to be, who were comfortable in each other's company, and who had learned that the journey mattered as much as the destination. Dinner at the waterfront? Tracy suggested. I'm craving their lobster bisque. After 30 years, you're still craving their lobster bisque, Jake said with fond amusement. Some things never change. Some things shouldn't change. Jake opened the passenger door of their car for her. It was still a BMW, though several models newer than the one that had carried him from death toward life. Like us. Like this. Like coming home to you every single day and being grateful I get to do it. Smooth talker. But Tracy was smiling as she got in. You know, people ask me sometimes, reporters, other business owners, young couples, they ask what the secret is. To a successful marriage, to building something meaningful, to staying in love for 3 decades. What do you tell them? I tell them there's no secret. Just the decision to show up and to choose each other every single day, even when it's hard. The decision to choose each other, again and again. The decision to build something together instead of just coexisting in the same space. She reached over and took his hand as Jake started the car. I tell them to find someone who makes them want to be better, who sees them clearly and loves them anyway, who believes in the same things and will fight for them side by side. And then I tell them to be that person for their partner too, Tracy continued. Because partnership isn't about finding someone perfect, it's about being perfectly matched in imperfection, growing together, healing together, and building together. Jake raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles with the same tenderness he'd shown on their wedding day. I love you, Tracy, rustling. Just as much today as I did when I proposed on that muddy ATV trail. Maybe more, because now I know all the ways you'll surprise me, support me, challenge me, and stand beside me. I love you, Jacob Lang. Tracy's eyes were bright with emotion. Thank you for staying. Thank you for healing. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for proving that broken things can be mended, that lost things can be found, and that sometimes the worst moments of our lives are just the beginning of the best ones. They drove toward town as the sun set behind them, leaving the foundation campus glowing in the last light of day. The marker would stand there long after they were gone, a testament to what 2 people had built from compassion and determination. But the real legacy wasn't in the buildings or the programs or the thousands of lives touched. The real legacy was in the love that had started it all. It was a love born from a frozen whisper of hope on the darkest night, grown through patience and partnership, and rippling outward in waves of healing that would echo through generations. They had transformed a single winter's rescue into a lifetime of service. They had turned personal trauma into communal healing. They had proven that love was real, brave, enduring, and love could literally save the world, one broken heart at a time. They had done it together, hand in hand, step by step, choosing each other and their mission every single day. The wind off the Atlantic carried the salt smell of home as they drove toward their next meal together, their next conversation, their next quiet moment of gratitude for the life they'd built. 30 years had passed since that frozen night, but the warmth of what they'd created would last forever, warming countless lives long after their own stars had set. The story of Jake and Tracy Lang had truly made history, not through grand gestures or singular moments, but through the daily, determined choice to love, to heal, to help, and to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Their story continued, written not in the past but in every veteran who found hope, every family rebuilt, every life reclaimed, every person who learned that they too deserved a second chance. Their love had truly made history, and it always would. This is for my wife. She is my rescuer, my refuge, and my true north. You found me in my frozen place, rejected, broken, walking a road that led only to darkness. Where others saw scars and turned away, you saw a man worth saving. Where others heard anger and stepped back, you heard pain and moved closer. Where I saw an ending, You saw a beginning I couldn't yet imagine. You held out your hand when I had no strength to reach for it. You spoke light into my darkness when I'd forgotten what light looked like. You saw past the armor, past the wounds, past the demons that chased me, and found the man I'd thought was dead and buried beneath the rubble of war. Through years of marriage, you've been my steadfast anchor in a sea that never stops churning. When the demons come, and they still come, you are always there. Even when I push hard to get away, even when I try to make you give up, even when the darkness tells me I don't deserve your love, you refuse to let go. You hold fast. You hold me fast. You didn't just save me once on a single frozen night. You save me still, every day, every moment, every time you choose to stay when leaving would be easier. You are the hand that pulls me back from edges I didn't know I was standing on. You are the voice that calls me home when I've wandered too far into the shadows. You are the light that never goes out, no matter how hard the darkness tries to extinguish it. This story is ours. Jake and Tracy's journey mirrors the path we've walked together, from brokenness to wholeness, from isolation to belonging, from merely surviving to truly living. Their love is a reflection of yours, patient, total, unwavering, and transformative. You gave me more than rescue. You gave me purpose, hope, and a future I never thought I'd have. You gave me a life worth fighting for, and a reason to keep fighting when the demons whisper that I should surrender. You are my home in the storm, my peace in the chaos, my reason for every breath. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for staying. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for loving me when I was unlovable, for believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. Thank you for being my anchor when the seas rage, my compass when I've lost direction, my harbor when I need shelter. Thank you for forcing me into the light and walking beside me every step of the way. You are my greatest blessing, my most profound gift, my forever. This book and this life is yours, always and forever. Your husband. You are the warmth in my winter, the light in my darkness, the home I spent a lifetime searching for. You didn't just save my life, you gave me a life worth saving. Dear listener, as a veteran myself, I want to thank you for taking this journey with Jake and Tracy. Their story has lived in my heart for a long time before it found its way onto these pages, and I'm honored that you chose to spend your time in their world. Frozen Whispers began with a simple question that I had to deal with and had haunted me. What happens to the warriors when the war is over? Not the parade and medals version we see in movies, but the real, messy, painful transition back to a world that doesn't speak your language anymore, doesn't understand your wounds, and expects you to simply move on from experiences that have fundamentally changed who you are. I've known men and women like Jake, people who served with honor, who lost brothers and sisters in arms, who came home with scars both visible and invisible, and who struggled to find their place in a civilian world that felt alien and wrong. Some of them made it. Some of them didn't. The difference, more often than not, came down to a single factor: whether someone cared enough to help. Tracy represents something I deeply believe in: the transformative power of one person choosing compassion. She didn't have to stop that frozen night. She could have called 911 and driven away with a clear conscience. But she made a different choice, the harder choice, and in doing so, she saved not just one life, but countless others through the ripple effects of that single act of kindness. This story is also deeply personal to me as my own exploration of grief, healing, and the courage it takes to love again after loss. Tracy's journey through widowhood, her struggle to honor her past while building a future, resonated with my own experiences of loss and the difficult process of allowing joy back into a heart that grief has tried to close forever. The themes of purpose and legacy run through this novel because I believe they're questions we all face. What are we building? What will outlast us? How do we turn our pain into something meaningful? Jake and Tracy's foundation isn't just about helping veterans. It's about the very human need to make sense of our suffering by using it to prevent others from suffering the same way. I want to acknowledge that while this is a work of fiction, the struggles Jake faces are very real. PTSD, survivor's guilt, the challenges of transitioning from military to civilian life, the inadequacies of our current support systems, these are not imagined problems. They're daily realities for thousands of veterans. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know that help exists. Organizations like the ones depicted in this novel do exist, and they're staffed by people who genuinely care and understand. To the veterans who may read this book, thank you for your service. Your sacrifices are not forgotten. Your struggles are valid. Your healing is possible. You deserve every bit of support and compassion a nation can provide. If you're in that frozen place where Jake started, please know that it doesn't end there. There are people who will stop. There are hands reaching down into the darkness.
Hold on.
To those who love veterans, your role is crucial. Your patience, your understanding, your willingness to be present even when you don't fully understand, these things matter more than you know. Love isn't always easy, and loving someone with trauma requires courage and commitment. But as Tracy shows us, that love can literally save lives. This novel took me many years to write, as I worked to get Jake and Tracy's voices right, to honor the reality of trauma while also offering hope, to balance the darkness of their struggles with the light of their love. I wanted to write a story that was honest about pain but ultimately about healing, realistic about challenges but ultimately about triumph. To you, the reader, thank you for giving Jake and Tracy your time, your attention, and your heart. Thank you for caring about their journey. Thank you for reading to the end. Stories only complete themselves in the reader's imagination, and I'm grateful you allowed this one to complete in yours. If this book has moved you, I encourage you to consider supporting veteran organizations in your community. Volunteer, donate, advocate for better mental health services and transition support. Hire veterans. Welcome them home, not just with words, but with action. Be the Tracy who stops to help. Because the truth is, we all encounter people having their worst day. We all have chances to drive past or to stop, to look away or to see, to do the minimum or to do what's needed. May we all have the courage to stop, to see, and to help, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard, even when we don't know what the outcome will be. That's how we change the world. One frozen moment at a time. One act of compassion at a time. One life saved that goes on to save others. Thank you for reading Frozen Whispers. The next story will continue in Book 2, but for now, I hope you'll carry their legacy with you. That broken things can be mended, that love can heal even the deepest wounds, and that choosing compassion, always, every time, is how we build a world worth living in. With gratitude and hope, J. H. D. Langren. Thank you for walking this incredible journey with Jake and Tracy, from a frozen roadside rescue to a legacy powerful enough to outlive them both. If you'd like to relive every moment of their story, the full Book 1 series is now organized in a dedicated playlist waiting for you on the channel. And remember, this isn't the end. Their next chapter is already stirring. A new spark is about to ignite. The first episode of Frozen Whispers Book 2, The Marines Airport Test That Ignited Eternal Love, is coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the moment as the stories continues. If this series touched you, please like the video, share the playlist, and leave a comment telling me what you loved most or what kinds of stories speak to your heart. Your voice helps this community grow, and your support helps these stories reach more listeners around the world. Thank you for being part of this journey. I'll see you in Book 2. My constant star. Before you came, a silent, hollow space, a fractured map of time, a lonely place. I drifted, lost, in shadows I had made. A masterpiece of ruin, a price I paid. Then you arrived, not with a blinding glare, but with a steady, gentle, constant care. You saw the wreck, the dust upon the floor, and saw a home where none had been before. You are the hand that fixed what was undone, the rising, brilliant, ever-faithful sun. You are the compass when I lose my way, the grace that fills my ordinary day. You are the light that found me in the night, my source of strength, my solace, and my might. Through every season, this will be my creed. My heart is yours, for every breath and need. The end.